Well, hello, hello. Welcome to what day is it? We said it was January 26th.
It is.
Seems like the
Yep.
longest month ever, but it's going to be the good year. So, my name is Dalia Elgazar. I am with Dalia Plus Agency. We are a boutique marketing agency that specializes in event technology, digital marketing. More so, we like to push the envelope quite a bit on how people are using event tech for their goals and objectives. And this is a hot topic right now. It's always been, but I think this is the year where event organizers, key stakeholders are going to be taking a look on how to up their game when it comes to lead gen. So I am in great company. I feel like the rose between the thorns, but that's good. So I'm going to have everyone introduce themselves. Matt, I'm going to start with you. Good morning or good afternoon.
Hello, and happy Australia Day. I'm Matt Harris, the CEO of Konduko. We're an attendee engagement platform utilizing contactless technologies, and lead capture is obviously a big part of what we do, as that's the primary purpose for exhibitors to come to events and use our tech.
Mark, you're next.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Dahlia. So I'm Mark Maiden, the commercial director here at Crowd Connected. Crowd Connected provides location software that enables event organizers to monitor, measure, and engage with attendees for a trade show. That's to the benefit of the whole ecosystem, visitors, exhibitors, sponsors, and organizers. From a visitor perspective, we provide things like blue dot navigation and location-based alerts through the mobile app. Enables visitors to get more from their time at the show. From exhibitors, it's all about driving footfall to stands, to booths. More footfall underpins more lead generation. And for organizers, it's about unlocking value, driving interactions, influencing visitor behavior, and measuring footfall.
Perfect. And last but not least, hey, Adam.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, so Adam Parry, editor day to day of eventindustrynews.com, and lucky enough to organise Event Tech Live, which is the UK and now hopefully the US, one of the events that you go to check out all the great technology, including Konduko and Crowd Connected, who are fantastic partners of ours on the show, and we've worked with them for a long time. So yeah, a little bit about me and Event Tech Live.
Perfect. So we're going to start off with the current status of where lead gen is at the moment. And, it's across the board with everybody having the uncertainty of either going face-to-face. We're going to stick to face-to-face exhibitions as well as shows. We're going to leave digital and the H word aside because that's a pet peeve and that's another session for another day. So, Matt, we're going to start with you. What's broken? What's working well? What examples, not only of epic success that you see at the moment, but of epic failure as well?
Well, I think, and this is my personal view, that I like how you use the word broken, because I do think that the lead retrieval model, and to a broader extent, the event tech deployment model, is broken. And that's through no fault of the technology at all. There's plenty of good technologies out there. But I think we're at a place in the world where events are really struggling to move beyond how things have always been done. And how things have always been done is not what consumers or the attendees expect or want these days. Unfortunately, for example, in the US, where lead retrieval packages sold to exhibitors are mostly linked to lead registration contracts, which makes it very difficult for the organisers to move on in those contract cycles. But the fact is that attendees don't like being scanned by salespeople. It's a horrible experience. Attendees come to shows to find and discover things, to collect things, to observe, to research. And then, what we see today is once people are interested in a brand or a business or an exhibitor or sponsor, then they will approach. And that concept is at odds with how lead retrieval is deployed these days. hiring talented salespeople using a scanner or an app or something like that. It's just a really, really big disconnect. And not only is it broken, but it's a tremendous lost opportunity. If we look at a different business model, maybe not just different tech, then organisers can make more money, they can get more data, attendees can be happier, exhibitors can get more leads, and the whole ecosystem would improve. So that's sort of my opening to where I think things are now, and it's time for a big change.
Well, so I think that's a valid point, not only focusing on the technology per se, but also more importantly, the process before, how it's being sold to the exhibitors, sponsors, as well as the onboarding of that sales team, so that the conversation is different as well. And I do like your point that it's very connected right now to registration companies. And I think that is, I'm going to say it's a fail, but it's also an opportunity. I don't want to piss anybody off, but I usually do. But, so like if we're going to take 2022 by the horns here, which we should, it's not only about the tech, but it's like, how are you going to do things differently? And this is our playground to do that. Adam, what do you have to say in regards to the current state of lead gen, if you will?
Sure. So I will caveat my answer by saying that I do not class myself as a professional trade show organizer. We organize an exhibition, but we organize one, now two. We are not doing hundreds of events with the experience that some of the medium to larger size companies out there. But what did strike me coming into the space was that ultimately exhibitions and trade shows and events in general about connecting buyers and suppliers together. Leads are very important. They're a very important metric in order for those companies to be able to quantify whether that's been a worthwhile investment. I do think as well, part of the problem is that we only see those scanned leads as part of one of the, we only focus on scanned leads as part of as the main metric, sorry. We don't consider other elements, which is where we'll come on to Mark later, that really do help understand as an organizer what each exhibition, what each exhibitor and sponsor is getting out of the show. But what really struck me was that it wasn't a unified experience across the show based on the way that lead capture is sold into a show in general, which is it's an add-on, it's a cost center. Mm-hmm. So therefore some people buy into it, some people don't. Some people buy one scan app for 15 staff and try and share it between them and have those really awkward conversations on site. And almost the opportunity in terms of the lead generation is minimized because it's driven by revenue. And I think one of the other things that I saw was, and Matt mentioned it, was it's a very awkward thing to be able to be scanned, especially if there's been no relevant conversation. It's not been qualified. If it's been qualified, if me and you, Dahlia, have had a conversation on a stand for 20 minutes, half an hour, and you say, you know what, let me just scan your badge, we'll send you some information, we've put some details down here, we totally understand what you want, that's relevant, I'm happy for you to do that. If I'm walking down an aisle at a trade show and you just go, can I just scan your badge because I'm here for leads, then I'm like, well, no. But the missed opportunity there is, and Matt touched on it, like I said, is people are there in research mode more than often, and they want to collect information. And now as a society, we are so used to being able to access information without interruption or talking to anybody, because we can do it on the touch of our mobile phone. So we need to think about the way we're design. Me personally, we try and think about the way that we're designing the event so that if somebody just wants to collect information, they can do, but the exhibitor and sponsor still gets a lead out of it. It's a soft lead, it's not qualified. So yeah, I think there's elements in terms of broken, there's things that are not being thought about the overall design of the way the experience is for the attendee and the exhibitor in terms of maximizing the value out of the show.
It's almost as if that, organizers need to, we've always categorized leads: hot, cold, warm, lukewarm, as many colors as you want, if you will. But it's almost as if, we always say, know thy audience, right? So like if you're in it at a show just to get names on an Excel sheet. So marketing would say, what the hell do we need to do with this kind of thing? Versus leads that really want information or want to engage or want to know more of your product or services. This is where maybe the categorization has to be a little bit different. So like those that you just want to run in the aisles and scan just against a bunch of names, thinking you're going to, purge your database that you had and you're going to add on 50 more. There might be, a marketing message to that versus a deep dive of here's our product, here's our services, personalize that whole pitch, if you will. So it's not only looking at the sales process, it's looking at like, what is your intention of those leads? At what level are you at so that you can categorize them a little bit more? So we want to make sure, like with this webinar, that we're actually giving work and assignments and accountability back to everybody that's listening, and that they don't end up just blaming it on the technology, which also happens, right? So, so Mark, from your perspective, what do you see that's current right now in our universe as it stands when it comes to lead gen for exhibitions?
Yeah, I think picking up on a couple of sort of themes that both Matt and Adam touched on. If we go back to the basics of an exhibition, of a trade show, it's about bringing together the constituent audience, the buyers and the sellers, the exhibitors and the visitors, all of those attendees in an environment where they can interact. Now, quite often, we've made it quite difficult for people to actually find what they're looking for or discover what they didn't even know was there. Mm-hmm. And that is even before we get to talk about the leads and how qualified those leads might be. So if we go right back to basics, in the real world, when you move around and about, the first thing you do is whip out your phone and use Apple or Google and a blue dot to navigate your way to where you want to get to. Humankind has ceded the ability to wayfind and navigate to the phone. The computer does it for us. So why, if I'm going to a large trade show or exhibition, am I still faced with out-of-date analog signage? And by signage, I mean complex floor layouts that I don't really understand. It doesn't tell me where I am and suddenly doesn't tell me where I need to get to. Why isn't my phone performing that function for me to enable me to get to the exhibition stand, the exhibition booth that I've come for, or even find the one I didn't even know was there, and make that navigation, that wayfinding piece as smooth and as familiar as possible, given that's how I work in the real world and the technology is available to do that. That should unlock a whole load of value that currently is locked up in the exhibition industry, which is the kind of what we might call the cost of getting lost. It's the fact that people they run out of time, everyone's time poor, to cite a cliche. They don't get to what they wanted to get to. They don't have enough time to work out whether they do want to engage with the personnel on the exhibition stand, or they get there and the personnel are busy, so they move on and then they come back, and then they move on and then they come back. So there's a whole lot of inefficiency. So there's a big point, I think, for the industry to think about how can we make our shows more efficient for participants. And that plays actually into some technology. For example, the ability to be able to capture leads without having to go up and interrupt someone's flow by attempting to scan their badge, enabling lead capture to happen in a much more efficient way. But that's a the cost of this opportunity is huge, I think.
Yeah,
I think in 22, everyone's absolutely desperate to be back on an exhibition floor. The power of human interaction trumps everything. But we've got to help people make the most of their time on the floor, and I think that's a big focus.
And I agree with what you're saying. And so instead of just focusing on 2022, we're going to leapfrog a bit, and we're going to focus 5 years ahead. One question I had for everyone: if we are to design better experiences, better connections, better exchanges, better leads, when is a prime time or the ideal time to bring in your lead generation partners especially your tech partners, into the design of the experience?
Can I go first?
Yes, hands up.
There's not a right time until straight away, because leapfrogging into 5 years ahead, at the moment what's happening is we're thinking about lead generation as the 2 or 3 days of our event, and that's the focus. And to be honest with you, it's sold as part of onboarding and exhibitor manuals and all of those kinds of things. And lead generation for me, without going down the route of communities and 365 and all of that kind of stuff, what we do have as an opportunity as an exhibition organizer or trade show organizers is to utilize technology that's integrated with the on-site lead capture to be able to understand what people are engaging with us on our site. The event is not the first touch point of that attendee. They're going to register, they're going to look at content, they're going to look at some exhibitors, they're going to look at some sponsors. Hopefully they're going to save some stuff to their profile because that's what they want to, what they're going to want to do. Mm-hmm. That data can go to Mark's technology and say, hey Adam, you're now on site and this is all the stuff that you've saved and this is where you need to go. And then I'm on site and I'm sharing stuff through, I'm collecting stuff through Matt's technology and I'm sharing that with the team that's external and not on site. And then I'm doing post-show follow-up, and then I'm coming back to the event website because I'm now engaging with the on-demand content. So as an organizer, I'm understanding even more about my audience on all of that. And as soon as the event finishes, that all starts again because of that on-demand piece and the next event and so on. So for me, our strategy is to build relationships with suppliers on multi-year contracts because we want to build a picture of our audience up as much as we can, so that we don't have to ask them lots of different questions. We're not trying to figure things out, and we can provide them much more better information and convert them into a better lead for our customer because we're pointing them in the right direction of where to go. And as Mark said, making their time efficient. That's my crystal ball.
No, which totally makes sense. So basically what you're doing is you are extending the ROI for your exhibitors and your sponsors through different touch points and exchange around content, but you're also getting to know them better and then serving them better.
It's like the Amazon
ads
that you get.
I was going to say Instagram. Netflix, but I guess you're shopping and I'm binging. So it's like, it's okay. But it is the same element, you know, it's like, serve me up what I'm missing, serve me up what I want to know more of.
But those digital businesses are built on data, right? Yeah. The fact is, that's the
what?
The
you're saying we have to design on data?
It's the digital flywheel. Yeah. Jeez. And behavioral data from what people are doing on the floor has been a missing piece, you know, and if projecting forward 5 years, I think the winners will be integrating digital tools into that physical environment, that physical experience, to the benefit of everybody. But from an organizer's perspective, they'll understand, they'll know, and they'll build their businesses on that data.
Perfect. Tony, you are absolutely right. Lead retrieval should serve the attendee, and it should be used as a personal bookmarking service for the attendees. Products, companies, session tracking, content, etc. Right on. High five, Tony.
It's spot on. And if you do take that sort of 5-year view, it takes time to get there. Oh, yeah. What we always say, it does take up to 5 years. I mean, what we say to our customers is...
It's time traveling now, Matt.
In the first year of any strategy, the very first thing you need to do is to get the event team on board. And once the event team is on board, then we can start to partner with them and start to think about what we want to achieve in the first year. And the only thing that's really important to achieve in the first year is to get the attendees to use the tech. Because if they're using the tech, they're finding it convenient, they're naturally just going to be creating attendee-led leads, which is going to get the attention of the exhibitors, and they're going to go, okay, there's something interesting here. Once you've trained got the team on board, the sales staff, the exhibitors seeing this might actually be interesting, the attendees using it, in the second year, you can actually start to use the data more effectively. You can think about different deployment models, how you want to configure your booth, the staff, what type of marketing activities prior to the show, etc. once you've got the masses using it, sort of 80% of the attendees, 90% of the exhibitors, then you start to create data, data that's actually useful at a very simple level. Which exhibitors are performing, which are not. That allows the sales staff to have meaningful conversations with the exhibitors, saying, hey, maybe you're not in the right spot, or maybe you need a bigger booth. Stuff that actually really adds value to the bottom line. And then once you start to understand that data and move into the third year and the fourth year, you can actually start to leverage that data, start to predict things and make decisions based on a volume of information that actually makes a little bit of sense. And it's either going to tell you things are working or things are not, what you need to change. So where are we going to be in 5 years? Well, it's a journey to get there. Hopefully in 5 years' time, event organisers, the attendees, the exhibitors and the sponsors are actually getting out of the event what they all hoped. And I'm sure it's going to be vastly different to where we are now.
So with us time traveling, as Mark said, and with us leapfrogging 5 years ahead, and I know there's a lot of people struggling right now with strategy. The whole uncertainty of everything, budgets are all over the place, numbers are all over the place. Some of them are still looking at vanilla KPIs. I call them vanilla KPIs because it's like, how many people registered? It doesn't matter. Like, that honestly, it doesn't anymore. But so what I'm also hearing from you is if we're taking this journey together, it means that the stakeholders internally that you're having discussions with, like lead gen does not sit only with biz dev anymore. Do you know what I'm saying? So like right now, that means you're asking, event organizers to rehaul the whole internal conversation, meaning the strategy has to happen much, much earlier than a show. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Much earlier.
Sorry, go on, man.
Go on, no. Okay, please. Right.
I was going to say, I think it also extends past the event as well. I think many event organisers are guilty of shaking everybody's hand at the end of the event, waving goodbye, good luck with your leads.
See you next year.
Exactly. Maybe we send them an email saying, do you want to rebook, or here's your leads, good luck, kind of stuff. There's a report by SEER that suggests, or based on data and reporting, that 65% of leads post-event don't get followed up. That's 65% lost opportunity, millions upon trillions of dollars probably in business through ineffective means of following up. Now, you could argue at the point of we've delivered the event, we've done our part. But I think actually as a partnership, if we can find, and I think technology will play a role in this, find a way to help with the follow-up process, start the follow-up process, automate part of it for them, report on it for them. If we can even move that 65% by 10%, that's surely got to come back to the industry as spend and reinvestment, whether that's in bigger stands, paying a higher square meter rate, spending more on sponsorship, doing more events, because those leads will have been followed up effectively and converted. And I think that's part of the vision of where I would like to see technology and organisers get to, leveraging technology as organisers to be able to help on that side of stuff as well.
So you just moved our conversation from an event tech focus to a MarTech focus.
Well, event tech and MarTech, there's you could call it a grey area, couldn't you? Events are a marketing activity. Technology plays a role.
Or a marketing channel. You're absolutely right. I'm going to play devil's advocate, and I'm going to say, I don't think event organizers have the right skill or talent internally to do that shift right now. Not what we're talking about. Not with all the different creative touch points, content, pre-event, show event, on site, and then post event. It is like, you got 2 leads from you got 2 leads on our show floor. Do you want to go from a 10 by 10 to a 20 by 30? Because hey, you killed it, right? And that's exactly the conversations that I see happening on a show floor. And it shows you that, is it the right people? Is it the right skill set? Are they not onboarded the right way? Like, that's where I see the disconnect is.
I disagree.
Okay.
With my customers.
Go.
the example that you just gave absolutely exists. Pre-existing relationships, not wanting to rock the status quo. I'm lazy. This is how we've always done it. All of these excuses exist. But we did an event. We turned on a component in our system. If I can just talk about us for a sec, in October, which made leads real time to the sales staff, to the exhibitors, to the organizer, and to the sponsors. And the first 4 hours on our support booth, it was overwhelming. I almost, if I can say it, I almost shat myself with excitement, because finally exhibitors were interacting with their leads that they were collecting, because one thing changed. They didn't have to wait for the Excel spreadsheet at the end of the show, and they could record their conversations and act upon it in real time. And I think the tipping point for our industry is when they can actually start to make decisions and see what's happening with what is human nature to us. We have eyes, we have ears, we touch, and we like to move in a sort of an agile way and act upon that. And we had 87% of exhibitors download their leads on the first day of that show. And that was because we believe we have to do some more events. We believe because the data was available in real time, and that being able to get to that level actually may be that tipping point for on-site staff and off-site marketing teams to start to do something useful with that information they're getting.
So it's you provided data right there and then.
Yep.
And
so when an attendee interacted with our tech, they received information. Some of it was like featured pods, product information. Some of it was sales material. Some of it was seminar information, like speakers notes and stuff like that. And the sales stuff, like, oh, something just happened on my phone. They had an app and they could see the leads being generated on the phone. And it's almost like the penny just dropped. It's like, oh, there's something there. I need to go over and talk to them. And it was a show that, traditionally was on a piece of paper and using a pen. It was just a quantum shift. And it was just I think if I was to describe it in a very simple context, it created sort of a value reward, something that has existed in consumer behavior forever, right? But finally, the attendee was getting something of value, and the exhibitor was being rewarded for providing that to the attendee. And so they started to talk.
So
this real time, sorry, Dahlia.
Yeah, real time.
This real time in-show exposure of data is crucial, and I do think this is a vision of the future, and we're back to the kind of 5-year timeline. To give you another practical example of how forward-looking show organizers are getting value from real-time data. Imagine a scenario where you can understand how footfall is being distributed across the entirety of the floor, and you can see which exhibitor booths are being highly trafficked and which aren't, as well as which are producing leads and which aren't, if you're using technology like MATs. You could actually, as a show organizer, you could go and take action to engage with those exhibitors who, on the basis of footfall traffic alone, are having a poor show. You can go and engage with them in advance of it becoming an even bigger problem, which is them complaining after the show that they had a terrible show. Or you can try and influence visitor behavior, but you need to be monitoring and measuring these things in order to be able to do anything about it. You need to understand where the baseline is. Not, as you said previously, trading on how many pre-reg names you've got in the database, or how many people didn't show up on day one but did show up on day two.
You mean the vanilla numbers?
So back to your vanilla KPIs. They've gone out the window. We've chucked those out. We chucked those out of the proverbial window. This is about focusing on the KPIs that really matter, and they really matter. They really matter to you as the organizer because they matter to the exhibitor and the visitor.
Right.
And this kind of approach of being visitor-centric or exhibitor-centric and thinking about what really matters to the visitor, that's going to drive up interactions, what matters to the exhibitor, and having data so that allows you to take better decisions. And Matt's example is a great one, but there are plenty of other ones, and of how forward-looking organizations are using data that in real time during their shows to base their decisions off. And I think that's where the success cases in the industry will
Definitely.
be.
So I just want to quickly address, Jeff, you're spot on that real-time data is key. So that's one. And then, Matthew, thank you for your comment in regards to, yes, events is definitely part of the marketing mix. Hallelujah. I don't know how long it took us to say, hey, we need to talk to the CMOs when we're talking about events, but here we are. We're not talking to CTOs or CFOs, believe it or not. Some of them are in charge of events. But what I think what Mark and Matt and Adam, what you're guiding us to, that the future of lead gen when it comes to shows, and this is overall, this is not only for exhibitions, right, is that if you have real-time data points that are at your fingertips and you've onboarded your sponsors or exhibitors on how to use it, so that's one, right? But then you're also guiding the behavior and the direction of those areas that need the most love based on the technology, on those insights. I also think that there needs to be some kind of just one person or a couple of people from the event organizer side that is responsible for monitoring that, for shifting that, for and I was at a show recently where there was a bunch of activations. They did really well. The leads were pouring in. The energy was amazing. There was another area of exhibitors. It wasn't doing well. Nobody's fault. It was a combination: location, lack of energy, nothing happening. Wallflowers came to, man the booths. They were playing Candy Crush. I don't know what was happening there. So basically, what we did was we sort of guided more activity there. It was more content related. It was like, hey, let's do a tour. There's $100 gift card incentive if you go to 3 out of the 10, for example. But this is where agility comes in. And a lot of event organizers, they tap their teams so hard when they're on the show floor. Coffee is ugly. You gotta go replenish it. Chairs, you gotta go to this breakout room. So it's like you almost have the technology that will enable this, I don't know, Energizer Bunny type of team that is able to guide people to do what you're saying. So that to action on the insights that you're talking about.
I would add to that as well, though. As in the process of engaging with a potential exhibit or sponsor and saying, "Hey, come to our event." And don't get me wrong, you do get people that are just like, "I want to book this stand because I've already got planned. I know what I'm doing. I know I'm going to approach it. They're skilled. They have a format and that works."
Have at it.
A lot of exhibitors, and most of the time, first time, second time, inexperienced exhibitors, maybe they do one trade show a year or something like that. And I think part of those analytics, you can, using Mark's footfall analytics, you can go, hey, listen, here's some real data. And as you can see, this stand throughout the event was really busy. And then combine that with Konduko, and they generated this many leads. What did they do? Well, they had a 3x3. It wasn't a crazy big stand actually, they brought the mascot in from the Commonwealth Games as something to stop people in the aisles. And it was a photo opportunity. It was an icebreaker. But you can't do that without quantitative data, because all you can do is tell the story of it rather than then back it up with, here's the footfall analytics and here's the lead capture data that you got out of it. And this is who they engaged. And I think back to Matt and Mark's real-time examples. I know brands that activate on events and use data like this to change their entire stand overnight. Yeah. So they increase the lead generation the next day.
You're talking about agility. You're talking about creativity, and you're talking about people that give a shit.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that the only people that can do that can have the big budgets. The pods that you talked about, we could support those people in having a better event. Maybe that's all their budget can stretch to. Maybe that's all that they can offer the event. It doesn't mean that they should have a worse time from a lead generation point of view. Yes, they may get less, because like one person could probably engage with probably generate like 6 to 20 good quality leads a day conversationally, that kind of thing. So they're not going to get hundreds of leads sending one person to an event, are they? They're going to get probably maybe backs of 50 to 60.
So this is where, and Sarah, thank you for piping in. This is where, what can we do, not only as tech partners, but what can we do to change the dialogue and the onboarding of those that are responsible for the leads and for those conversations? Like, what have you seen that has worked? Because maybe they're not equipped. There's a lot of new talent and new people coming into the industry. They're not used to selling or like having conversations as we know that would be successful.
Yeah, actually,
what is the change like now? Excuse me.
Someone, a CEO of an event organizer, said to me last year, the problem that you've got as an event technology company is that we only think in 1 year cycles. And Mark and I are selling a solution which, in order to get the best out of it, you have to take a much longer view, because things take time. You just can't turn it on and then everything works.
Why not? There's magic wand.
I'll give you an example. So one show we've done 5 times, one exhibitor told us to go away. Very.
Come on, say what he said.
Told us to fuck off.
There you go. You already said yourself.
Where's my beat
that
button?
one. What?
3 years later, he was number 6 in the number of leads generated at the show.
Nice.
And we've got hundreds of those examples. It's just about taking people on a journey. And my number one message is you have to bite off what you think you can chew in the first year. And if you don't have the resources, then once you have made a decision to appoint a vendor, work with them in partnership. You've done all the hard work by choosing them. Now actually give us a benefit of the doubt, ask us our ideas, what will work and what won't, and then pick off 3 things that you want to try this year. I'm sure 1 or 2 of them won't work, and then don't punish the vendor for not working. Come up with a plan to rectify the situation and try again, unless it's a disaster, of course. But what one thing should change, you asked? It's just take a 2-year view, but move beyond 12 months.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think, I couldn't agree more. I'd also say that the one thing that needs to change is you can't just repeat what you were doing last year or the year before. In fact, you probably weren't doing it last year because of a small global pandemic that got in the way. But the last time that you had a physical show, just putting it on again. If you do that, in essence, you're putting on the same show that was put on in 1850 when the first trade show happened, and the world has moved on. So, just doing what you've done previously isn't going to work. However, budgets are tight. Yep. Personnel is in short supply. Most people have slimmed down their teams as a consequence of the situation that we've all found ourselves in. The revenues are under pressure and all the rest of it. So it is well understood that you can't just go and spend more money willy-nilly on new initiatives. So I do think it's going to go think as an organizer about what your key priorities are, and focus on those. And technology can help you deliver them, but think about what are the problems that we're solving. What are the key problems? If you've got a small show, you probably haven't got a problem with people finding what they came from. But that's not the same. The dynamics are different in a large show. But maybe a small show, it's all about you getting the quality of those conversations and not the quantity of those interactions.
Or starting those conversations.
Yeah, precisely, or initiating them, exactly. Yeah. So I'd always encourage people when we're talking to organisers, or what are your priorities? What are your real priorities? What's the things that are really keeping you awake at night, and how can we or others help with those, or not, as the case may be.
And I think that's really important, because right at the start we did say one of the things that's broken is we as an industry sell these lead capture technologies into as a revenue stream. And I don't think any of us are sat here going, you need to just stop doing that and give it away for free and forget about all that P&L. Where I think what we're all suggesting is if it could be approached differently, and the exhibitors and sponsors taught the value and it be delivered in a much better way, there's actually probably a lot of revenue that could be made more over and above what a lead capture license would bring in the shape of increased investment, larger stands, more what was the other one? More investment outside of the event in other things and stuff like that. Like, you know, it's probably a hard gig trying to sell an exhibitor 150 quid, 250 quid license after you've just charged them 15 grand for a space. Mm-hmm. Whereas if they have a good show and they, you know, everybody's kitted out with it, they're making loads of money, maybe they'd spend 30 grand in the next event. But yeah, just to Mark's point, because I know everybody is under pressure to, you know, generate revenue, and I don't want people watching to think that we're basically saying to cut a revenue stream out. That's not helpful.
Tony, I wanted to address Tony's fact. Yes, the fact remains lead retrieval does subsidize out-of-pocket reg costs for an event organizer. Sometimes reg companies bundle reg and housing together, and then they try to figure out like how to make up for costs there. I think that business model is also broken and needs to be taken another look at. So when we as Dahlia Plus consult with our clients that are very focused and they have been entrenched in one annual to another, right? And so that's where the lead gen comes in. They put everything, their soul, their tears, their blood, ugly crying into that one annual conference. And ugly crying is real. I've seen it. But the thing about it, where we're trying to push them out of their comfort zone, and it's happening, but slowly. It needs to happen like faster for their sake, for survival as well as for brand loyalty from their audiences, or else they will seek somewhere else to go, is to think of it as almost like a continuum of experiences. Call it what you will. But there will always be lead gen and behavior maneuvering, if you will, for any type of event. And I know that we focused on lead gen only for face-to-face events, and those face-to-face events can take different formats, right? So it's not only the annual anymore. It could be even co-located mini events. The hub and spoke model still can exist, especially now for those that don't want to travel far away from home, if you will, or the meetups. Anything that has an opportunity to have an exchange of content, of messaging, of connections is lead gen opportunity. And my understanding is that Crowd Connected as well as Konduko can help facilitate that. I challenge you, not only as tech partners, that you are going to get messy in the strategy and the consulting part with your clients on this. And maybe even with the top, like, you know, bellwethers or exhibitors of the shows, if you're not already. But this is where I also tell everybody that's listening in from the event organizer side, you got to lean hard on these gentlemen here, because, you know, don't just ask about the capabilities of what the platform can do. Truly ask them of how you can step up your face-to-face events and any other event that has a lead gen opportunity connected to it. So I just put you both on the spot, but I'm just saying.
Can I just on that, Dahlia, just as a Tony's comment is something that we come up against all the time. Mm-hmm. And I've created spreadsheets and analysis and models and looked at all sorts of things. There's only one thing getting in the way of change where these registration contracts exist, and that is a desire to change, because the numbers don't support the status quo. If 50% of the registration or up to 80% of the registration costs are being subsidized by lead retrieval, that money can be made back 2 times in the second and third year, and then pay the registration company full rack rate for their services. And all that's required is a decision and a 2-year plan to change. So it does stack up, and the modeling is sound, and it's completely validated. But it is to get people to move away from how they currently do stuff with these contracts. It's the biggest barrier, just to make that decision.
Well, and moving people on away from how they did things. If the pandemic taught us anything, it's like our attendees and our stakeholders don't live in the same mind or in the same world that we knew. So if you're not shifting, I don't know what you're waiting for, because they've already shifted. So therefore, you have to change accordingly. Behaviors have changed, content consumption has changed, walking a show floor has changed. You are actually now, we're looking more at psychology, at introverts versus extroverts, or introverted extroverts. And you have to plan according to that. The design, the content, the stages, the white space that you put together. Those are all potential lead opportunities. You just have to show the stakeholders, the event organizer side, the marketing, teams, etc., as well as the attendees, what's in it for them.
Yeah.
I think the registration models change in any way. We used contactless, almost staffless. The only reason we really had anybody there was from a COVID perspective this last year. There were no registration staff. It was a scan, collect, and enjoy the rest of the show scenario on site. And then, honestly, from a registration form perspective, 10 years ago it was much harder, but now there are so many low code, no code options on the market that if you can understand a little bit about logic, you can honestly put a registration form together in a day, realistically, from start to finish, and have it integrated with your CRM system, Google Docs, databases, and an API that companies like Konduko and things like that can pull from. So I'd say that registration model is fragile, and then you've got other companies like Apple and Google and things like that are pretty much registering you for everything else anyway. And the question is, do we really need all of those questions about people that came to the event last year? How much has changed? Or can we learn more from them by what they interact with, who they interact with, and where they go?
So this is all about making it easy for people, right? This is about making it easy for the visitor, making it easy for the exhibitor. So if you're selling to an exhibitor, make it easy. Don't try and layer up a whole load of stuff in terms of additional services, and you've got to pay for this, and making it complicated. And on the other side of the coin, for the visitor doesn't want to go through a 25-page registration form. Because I have no idea. Some of them have got better things to do, apparently, but that's what I hear. And once they get on the floor, make it easy for them. So one kind of key takeout message, and the sort of is we live in a society where everyone is pressured for time and pressured for quality of time. Make it easy. And if it isn't simple, if it isn't easy, people will disengage. They'll disengage from the process, they'll disengage from the show. Yeah, and ultimately that means there is no show. So we're always thinking when we're talking and providing that consultancy piece, Dahlia, that you talked about, and I do think that is important. By the way, we're not selling technology, we're selling, by the way, we're trying to solve problems and make things better. The technology happens just to deliver that, and just to be the means to the end, but it is only the means to the end. Is how do we make it easy? How do we make it easy for you? Because if we're making it easier, we are taking out inefficiencies, and we're unlocking value, and everyone will get more more from the environment.
Well, nobody has done a comeback like the QR code this year. Just say.
No, that's unbelievable. And the
Oh my
contactless
God.
payment in the US.
Forgot
Wow.
about that little QR code, and then all of a sudden, what a comeback! I gotta tell you. So Matthew had a question. Huge amount of science and psychology in supermarket design to get more ROI from shoppers. Is there any research and work completed on the design of a trade show?
Go on.
You go. I just made a noise.
I think specifically for the events industry, there are some interesting things. AMR have some interesting research. They're actually just publicising or just about to publicise what they call Exhibitions 3.0, which I think they'll hate me for this. Denzel will hate me for this, but they're piggybacking off Web3 with that name. And there is some bits, the AEO, CISO have some great collaborative content and stuff. But what Matt's saying there, I think there's actually a lot that we can learn from the way that type of shopping experience, especially in person, is designed, right? Especially from, back to Mark's point about navigating and wayfinding and get what you want. Like, supermarkets have this down to a T. They understand where you go, where you look, what you want. They even now print a little receipt out at the back end when you've finished your shop and said, by the way, here's a little coupon off that, that milk that you've not bought in 3 weeks. So, and that's the level of detail we need to go. So I would actually start to look at kind of the research in those industries and adopt that kind of methodology to our
I think there is more to it as well. Not only is it looking at consumer behavior or shopping experience, if you will, on a physical level, right? And this is where, like, you see a lot of mention of metaverse and all of this, because that's where we're going. And this is a segue to maybe another session. We discussed lead gen on the physical level, but this is also where shoppers are shopping on digital environment level. So, like, how do you maximize that? I want to go to the show floor. I'm going to do this, but keep talking to me and showing me stuff on the virtual or digital world from my couch. And that's something that we can't not see anymore. Not with the younger generation, not with the comfort level that it brings, from a psychology perspective to others that are just not wanting to be out in the world as much as they did. They still want to do business. They still want to be empowered. They still want the content. They still want the connections. But we're going to have to think of it in what kind of platforms are we going to be offering that on a continuous basis. Does anybody else have any questions, any comments before we wrap this baby up? Other than the QR code making a comeback, because that's...
Who built the QR code, by the way?
I don't know, but Scott Stratton, who's an awesome author, once said on stage that every time someone uses a QR code, a kitty dies. And it's stuck with me.
You see, if somebody created a QR code now, every time somebody scanned one, somebody on the blockchain would get a little credit. That's what would happen if that stuff was invented now. Every time somebody scanned a QR, somebody would be getting a kickback.
I get a kick out of getting a QR code in an email and it's on my phone and you can't scan it because your camera's on the other side. Just saying.
Or you can't remember what you've actually collected because it disappears after a while. You have to bookmark it.
That is a brilliant move right there. Someone needs to consolidate all my QR code scans. Matt, I need you to do that by tomorrow.
I have it already. I can show you at a show in March.
Right. Okay, I'm right there. So, any last minute advice?
I think my biggest advice is, and it was mentioned earlier about what's the right time to start strategizing and investing, scoping out this type of technology. I think it's now. Somebody also mentioned about, I think it was Aid that mentioned about building back better. There's going to be so much more focus on the ROI and what people are getting out from the event or the return on objective. And technology will be a tool that we can use as organisers to really do that. But it does need to be a long vision. It can't just be, right, oh crap, we've got the event around the corner, we need a lead capture technology, let's get it in place, and just keep thinking about each event. It's got to be a strategy rather than a cycle.
Yep. Perfect. Mark, what about you? Any last minute advice?
No, this is the journey, right? We're all on a journey, and the fact is, you need to get on board. People go at different pace. They've got different priorities, but the fact is that the successful physical shows of tomorrow will have integrated various digital tools into that physical experience to the benefit of visitors, exhibitors, and organisers. And you need to start, because if you don't start, you never get anywhere on a journey. To
Very
get on
true.
board.
Matt, what about you?
I just wanted to say that the idea behind this discussion was come from a place of, we thought we might have some ideas that people might find useful. We all have different perspectives, and it's not a sales pitch at all. It's really sharing information. And if anybody wants to talk to us, please reach out. I'm very happy to share. We love talking about what works and what doesn't. Mark and I are competitors sometimes. Sometimes we're partners. And we're very much of the view that not one size fits all. And if we don't have the answer, we'd be very happy to point you in the right direction.
Hear, hear.
Perfect. Well, thank you for this. This was fantastic. And I hope there's a part 2 about like the virtual side of this, but that's wishful thinking. And I hope everybody got a couple of ideas out of this conversation, and looking forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alia. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.